Hey everyone, it's Spicy Sushi. So I wanted to continue the tradition that I've been doing on my channel. If you're unfamiliar with it, basically I like to do a League Start video going over my starter as well as my League Start strategy when it comes to currency generation. Now, unlike past leagues, this time I don't actually know what I want to start exactly yet. I know what I want to play, but there is a build that I have my eye on, and it is Poison Spark Occultist, because the league mechanic looks like it's just made for this skill. You're in close quarters. If you didn't know, Spark just launches a lot of projectiles that bounce off walls. It's going to be stacking up lots of poison, lots of pops through Profane Bloom. Because of the new curse buffs, I think it's going to be incredible because it is a curse-centric build. And yeah, I think it's just going to be a ton of fun. I haven't played it before, but I'm really looking forward to that. But the problem is, it's actually very expensive. In my opinion, the way that I want to play it, I do want to get an Ashes. There are some other gear slots that are pretty expensive, like the weapon that I want to get pretty min-maxed. So it is going to be a very expensive build to play, and I can't league start it. So it's been a pretty big issue for me because I'm not exactly sure what I want to league start, but I do have a lot of considerations that are my top contenders, and that's what I want to go over with you to maybe give you guys some ideas. So I want to go over my top contenders, what I would consider to be the best builds that I might be starting before transitioning into this. Now, first of all, I want to say it is going to be a witch because I don't want to re-level a new character, and witch is just one of the most versatile classes to start in the entire game. Like, I'll put up on screen all the different things that you can play. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like, there's so many headhunter juicing builds, like especially with the new Explodey Flask, there's going to be so many cold convert BV players. And so let's go ahead and jump into maybe the potential starters. I'll give some arguments for why I might or might not be going with it, and maybe it can help you pick your starter as well. Witch starters, I would kind of group into two different things. You have the Ignite Witch starter and you have the Poison Witch starters, and then you have some others. Like, you might have some minion build starters, you might have some cold dot starters, but usually people either start Ignite or they start Poison. So let's go over Ignite first. Now, if you don't know, Explosive Arrow is one of my favorite builds of all time. It is such a solid chill build that has absurd damage. I've played it for 2 leagues, and it's definitely the strongest starter I've ever played. It has boss farming levels of DPS and great clear for mapping because you get like the Elementalist 60% AoE paired with Ignite Proliferation. With EA, you actually path through Elemental Equilibrium on the passive tree, so you don't have to worry about like playing with Wave of Conviction for a long time for your exposure application. It's really just a good solid build. It's not a build I'd play as a beginner player because it does have a lot of boxes you need to check that you may be unfamiliar with, and also it doesn't have a lot of zoom. It does have permanent onslaught through a cluster jewel, but that's really it. You really have to go out of your way for more zoom, and also like the boxes you need to check is like accuracy, good attack speed, mana management. If you don't have life tap, you got to make sure you're not breaking parts of your build like Elemental Equilibrium, and also the leveling is a little awkward in my opinion, since I don't like switching to EA early in the campaign. I like to do it later in maps once I get the key uniques like Tempest and Diadian. Now, the next Ignite build I want to talk about in the Witch League starters is going to be Ignite EK, or Ethereal Knives. Now, I think a lot of people are considering this. I definitely would love to be able to League start it because it is a very fun build to play. But I think the issue is that even in the end game, the build spreads itself very thin, and I think that sounds kind of like a nightmare in a League start scenario. Now, what do I mean by that? EK requires a lot of scalers in the build, not only damage, defenses, but also just when it comes to the mechanics of the build itself. If you didn't know, EK scales heavily with projectile speed. It's not just how fast the EK knives go, it's actually how far they go. So the AoE of the skill is decided by prod speed. You need a lot of it, and you also want to have a lot of cast speed in the build as well, so that you're able to have some pretty smooth clear. You don't really need the cast speed as much for bossing, but you do want it for clear. You want prod speed for clear. In order for the build to work, it needs to be converted to elemental, and so you usually do that with a minimum hatred and like Harem Sorrow, I guess, that unique gloves. But in the late game, you probably want to add some more scalers such as like Malevolence, and I even wanted Haste, because with an alt quality Haste, you're getting cast speed, you're getting prod speed, you're getting player speed, and at the end of the day, there's not much room for defensives, especially early league, and that's what I struggled with when I played the build, was defensives. Even with a headhunter, it was pretty squishy, and so that's why I would probably recommend league starting something like Vortex, Ignite, or EA before moving into EK later on. Since I've already played EA a couple of times, if I were to play an Ignite build, I'm pretty sure I would go with Ignite Vortex simply because it'd be fresh for me. It's still the classic Ignite Prolift style, it's just kind of without the totem placement, and I believe takes a little bit longer to get started. That's why most people have to League start Wave of Conviction, but that's definitely on the top of my list if I was to choose an Ignite Elementalist. Alright, so the last 3 League starters I want to talk about are going to be Poison, Witch, League starters. Now, the 3 that people are most common with is going to be Bladefall, Blade Blast, Blade Vortex, and Poisonous Concoction. Now, I did actually end up testing all 3 of these pretty extensively, and my favorite out of the 3 was actually Poisonous Concoction. Now, all 3 have pretty good mapping because of Plague Bearer. You're basically running around just exploding things, and all 3 of them make use of Shield Charge. But honestly, the difference between Poisonous Concoction and the other 2 is Poisonous Concoction actually scales Shield Charge because it scales attack speed. And so I think if you want to scale a build into the mid to late game, you should definitely not pick Poisonous Concoction. That is the definite issue that I ran into with this build. I think it's a pretty controversial build that the community is pretty divided on because the damage is quite low. Diminishing returns are heavy when it comes to damage scaling. I think the main appeal and why I'm considering it is because since I want to transition into Poison Spark and I need a lot of money, I like a build that can run basically with no gear at all. But it's great for Heist and it's great for completing an early Atlas, getting an early Voidstone, but that's about it. That's kind of the extent that I would take this build, and that's why if you want to League start a Poison build on Witch, I would probably not do Poisonous Concoction. If you want to play it for a long period of time, I would definitely pick one of the other 2s. In my opinion, they felt a little bit clunky without without Onslaught, without cast speed, without haste. PFBB especially relies on on high APM and having some good cast speed. BV, you do want to have some cast speed for the BV, or else you're going to be taking forever to charge up that thing. But if I was not wanting to switch in early on, I would definitely pick one of those if I wanted to do a Poison League starter. But since Poisonous Concoction, it can do what I want it to do early, I can put like 5 Divines in it and be happy and start saving up for the Poison Spark transition, and I can even actually buy some gears that would help me with Poison Spark. That's why I would probably pick a Poison Witch League starter, and it would probably be Poisonous Concoction. Now, the reason I'm not going with an Ignite Witch build is because it's simply too much work to set up an entire build for Ignite, an entire different passive tree, entire different build scaling, so different gear, just to dismantle all of it in a few days to play Poison Spark. I feel like I'd get really burned out, even though I don't need to level a brand new character, but that's my reasoning for that. So those are my thoughts on potential League starters. But now I want to go into the bulk of the video, which is going to be how I'd want to make the money to fund this Poison Spark build that I'm so excited to play this league. Now, the first of my League start strategy is actually obviously going to be some Endless Heist. It wouldn't be a Spicy Sushi video unless I did talk about Endless Heist. Now, this time, I don't plan on going full degen like I have in past leagues where I do it for like 30 plus hours or like 3 days straight. It's definitely going to be kind of just a day 1, day 2 thing that I do for money. Now, if you don't know what Endless Heist is, I definitely recommend checking out my videos that I have on the topic. I have it documented on it. I have multiple videos, so I don't feel I need to cover it all over again. So definitely check out my guides if you'd like to know about that. But I'm going to do is I'm actually going to jump into some blueprints as well, because there's some really strong early loot from that, such as alternating scepters for bossers. And then there are some people that are going to be playing Poison LS still and Poison Molten Strike. I know it got nerfed, but there's still actually a lot of interest in it. So I think these will have some good sell value, at least the first couple of days. Now, the reason I don't want to stay in blueprints for long, despite the raw currency drops and those items, is that they are going to tank very fast, and they remove replica Conqueror's Efficiency, which was one of the best early sustainers for costs on rogue markers. So that's why I'll be wanting to get out of those pretty quickly. So they're definitely going to be like a day 1, day 2 thing for me. But then once I am able to buy logbooks and Atlas memories off of trade, I'm going to be doing those as much as I can. So let's go ahead and cover those. Alright, so let's go ahead and go over the most important thing, and that is going to be Atlas memories. These are going to be what I prioritize over everything else. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you probably missed 3.19, and I don't blame you for that at all. But let me go over what they are and why they are so strong. But in my opinion, these are the strongest pieces of content that GGG has ever added in the game. They are absurdly broken, but they are also absurdly rare, even though they can drop in the basic map pool. There's a lot of them and a lot of different kinds, but they are super rare. And what they do is when you use them in your hideout, they're going to open up an atlas that you can choose a 4 to 5 map chain. And you do probably want to have some void stones so that you can make sure the maps are high tier if it matters. there are some Atlas memories that you can do in low tier maps like the Essence memories and get good rewards out of it. But what these are actually is just going to be regular maps, but they are going to be have the modifiers on them exponentially increased. Like your modifiers on the map are going to scale with that, and also there's going to be extra things added. Some of those extra things are actually league mechanics that are warped in a certain way that we're not used to in the normal Atlas. Like, for example, the Survivor's Guilt memory that I'll show you here. I wanted to test these out because of the fractured shards that are going to be dropping this league. Basically, what this is, a super juiced map, and instead of beyond spawning when I kill monsters, there is a chance for Harbinger packs to spawn. And you may not think that's insane, because Harbingers are pretty lackluster right now, and they might be next league as well, but just look at the amount of juice on this map. It is absolutely absurd. This is just chisels, an alchemy orb, and one delirium orb. And can you believe that? This looks like I'm doing Ritual League all over again. It's insane. Now, the really cool thing about this is that you don't need to have any Atlas points. They have their own separate Atlas. They have their own Atlas notables, and sometimes it'll even say like what the notables are that are influencing these maps. For this one specifically, it is just massive multipliers on quantity, rarity, monster life. Unfortunately, they're very, very hard. This one specifically. Some of the others are very hard as well, like the Essence memory. But the amount of monsters on the map is ridiculous. Honestly, if this is not that expensive this league, which it probably will be, even if the Fractured Orb doesn't even have a good drop rate, Fractured Shards, I mean, just the amount of juice in this map is ridiculous. Look at the amount of rewards that I'm getting from this one Delirium Orb. You don't need to add any Sextants to these memories. You don't need to have any Scarabs. You can't even put Fragments in there. It is literally just Chisel Alch. You can corrupt them as well, although some of them I don't recommend that. And it's just insane. Some of these actually produce the most income in the entire game right now. For example, the Harvest memory, believe it or not, is 5 Divines right now. That is more expensive to run than Feared, and it's still profit because you're getting T4 monsters consistently. You're getting Oshabis consistently. I'm not sure what they're doing with Harvest League, though, with removing T4 seeds. I think it'll still be pretty strong because people are going to want to buy Life Force for a lot of different things. And also crafting might be cheaper if Life Force is cheaper, since it's not getting dictated by T4s. We just don't know yet. The new Bestiary Harvest might be pretty cool with tradable crafts. I'm specifically looking at the Essence memories, since I think there'll be a amazing supply of Essences this league. But they are very hard as well. But if you do them in T1 maps, it's not the worst. But there's no Essence on the device. As a result, I don't think people are going to be doing many Essences on the map, on the Atlas in general. If it's not on the device, we'll just have to see. And also, people have to dedicate a lot more points now to what they want to do because there's more points on the Atlas. So I think Essence might be pretty low prio for people. So this might be really good for that. The new Domination memory they talked about in the trailer, they didn't go over rewards other than they're tantalizing. But, you know, when it comes to GGG, that could mean that they'll drop 2 Chaos per map. We have no clue. But the Harbinger memories have my eye on. And then the Alva memory actually was known for very good experience, gave a lot of XP, and also drop temple bases, which might be pretty good this league. So overall, I think these will be the most money in the game, farming these memories. But I mean income. I don't mean profit, because that's the problem, right? They're going to be super rare. I think everyone's going to be buying them, especially at League Start. They are basically a dream come true for League Start. You just buy this memory and you get 4 super juiced maps that you don't have to do any investment for besides the memory itself and the Chisel Alch and maybe a Corruption. That's absurd, right? So I think they might be bought out. I think they're going to be super rare. I'm just not sure how this is going to go. I want to say these are my League Start strategy, just farming lots of different memories, because they're a ton of fun as well. But I just can't say that because I don't know if there's even going to be like more than 5 of each memory on trade, and they're going to be super expensive probably. But I wanted to mention them because they are broken. So if I can't do Atlas memories the entire time, and I don't want to do the Atlas, but I need to make money for this Poison Spark Occultist before I can do the League mechanic, what am I going to do? Well, if you didn't know, you can actually farm logbooks without ever even doing any Atlas progression at all. You do need to have a map device that you can open, so you do need to kill Katava and do the introductory quest. But as long as you have met Danig, which you can do in the actual campaign, and if you don't find him in the campaign, you can find him early in maps or use like an Expedition Scarab after doing some heists like I will. and you can start farming logbooks. So that is the goal, actually. I do want to do some endless heist. I want to farm up some money to maybe buy memories, maybe make my build good enough to do memories because they are really hard. But also I want to make my build capable of farming high tier logbooks. And I'm going to be specifically farming Danig, Tujin, and Rog. So if Rog books are very cheap, I will be prioritizing those for crafting. I do love to craft with Rog. I think it's really chill after farming some logbooks just to sit back and print gear. He's going to be one of the most accessible crafting methods in the entire game, and there's a lot of aspirational content in this game now because you want to make a really good build for farming Sanctum if it's going to be good. And also people are going to be possibly juicing their atlases more than we've ever seen with the new atlas passives. So people are going to want to buy gear. And so I think Rog is going to be a lot of fun to craft with. He is a bit of a hard thing to craft with. I'm going to be crafting with him and practicing with him more to get used to him leading up to League Start. If you want to come tune in, ask questions, watch on stream. But, you know, when I don't want to do some Rog crafting, I'm going to be doing some Tujin and some Danig. The issue with Tujin and Danig is I think a lot of people are going to like Tujin. He just basically prints currency for you. The general rule is that when you buy a Tujin logbook, you're going to double your money. We can't really split books anymore because of the split bees, so they might be pretty expensive. I think a lot of people are going to want to farm Tujin, want to farm Danig to get more Tujin rerolls, so we'll just have to see on that. But that is my plan, is going to be logbooks, and I'm going to want to farm these memories. Now, if I for some reason can't buy logbooks and Heist just isn't going well at all, I will push into the Atlas, but it's just going to depend. I'm focusing on having fun, and you should too, guys. But I'm definitely going to be pushing for Poison Spark Occultist as soon as I can. So I'm looking forward to this League Start, and hopefully you'll think about tuning in and watching and hanging out with me if you're interested in any of these topics that I covered or interested in following the Poison Spark Occultist journey. So I will see you guys at League Start.